Jack, a former detective, stood outside the precinct, his eyes fixed on the building that was once his second home. He hadn't set foot in there for years, not since the case that went sour and left him with a bitter taste in his mouth. He had spent 2 years in prison for a murder he didn't commit, framed by his own partner, Alex. But today, he had no choice. Sarah, a determined journalist, had called him with a tantalizing lead on a conspiracy that went all the way to the top. After his release from prison, Jack had thought he was done with the past. But Sarah's call had brought it all flooding back. He had to know the truth. As he entered the precinct, familiar faces turned to look at him, their expressions ranging from curiosity to suspicion. Jack nodded at a few of them, but his eyes scanned the room for Sarah. She was already waiting for him, her dark hair pulled back in a ponytail, her eyes shining with intensity. "Thanks for coming, Jack," she said, her voice low and urgent. "I think we're on to something big." Sarah led him to her desk, cluttered with files and papers, notes scribbled in the margins. Jack's eyes widened as he took in the scope of her research. This was no ordinary conspiracy theory. Together, they pored over the evidence, following a trail of clues that led them deeper into the heart of corruption. They spoke in hushed tones, aware that they were playing with fire. The more they uncovered, the more they realized that they were in grave danger. As the sun set, casting long shadows across the city, Jack and Sarah found themselves in a dark alleyway, looking over their shoulders, unsure of who to trust. The air was thick with tension, the only sound the distant hum of traffic. But they pressed on, driven by a quest for truth. They walked for blocks, the alleyway giving way to deserted streets, the city lights twinkling like stars. Jack's instincts were on high alert, his hand resting on his gun, but Sarah seemed fearless, her eyes fixed on the goal. Their search led them to an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of town, a towering monolith of rusting steel and broken dreams. Jack's heart raced as they approached the entrance, his senses screaming at him to turn back. But Sarah pushed on, her determination infectious. Inside, the warehouse was dark and cavernous, the only sound the creaking of old wooden beams. Jack fumbled for his flashlight, the beam casting eerie shadows on the walls. And then, suddenly, they were face to face with the true culprit, Alex, his former partner. "You're a hard man to kill, Jack," Alex sneered, a gun glinting in his hand. But Jack was ready. With a swift move, he disarmed Alex and pinned him to the ground.